Okay, so hi everybody. We are Wednesday and we are just starting our third series about the Spanish rule and the long independence war. You remember we just finished the golden age of the discoveries of Portugal, with the fact that Portugal went much further in Asia until Japan and China. Okay. So now we are starting the Spanish rule, and we are going to start this series with the Battle of Cacique in 1578, which we mentioned last week, and can be seen as the end of the Grand Voyage and glorious expansion year of Portugal. This important battle and the defeat of the Portuguese army and presumed death of its king Sebastian led to the end of the Avis dynasty and the integration of Portugal in the Iberian Union for 60 years under Philip II of Spain dynasty. Okay? The Battle of Alcácer-Quibir, also known as the Battle of Three Kings, was fought in northern Morocco near the town of Ksal el-Kibir and Larache on August 4, 1578. The combatants were the army of the deposed Moroccan Sultan, Abu Abdallah Mohammed II, with its ally, the King of Portugal, Sebastian I, who were going to fight a large Moroccan army nominally under the new Sultan of Morocco and uncle of Abu Abdallah Mohammed II, Abd al-Malik I. Okay? So the Portuguese cortege asked Sebastian several times to go to Morocco and stop the turmoil of the advancing Turkish military presence, because the Ottomans would be a threat to the security of the Portuguese coast and to the commerce with Guinea, Brazil, and the Atlantic Iceland. But it was only when Abu Abdallah Mohammed II went to Portugal and asked for Sebastian's help in recovering his throne from his uncle that Sebastian decided to mount a military effort. The battle ended after nearly 4 hours of heavy fighting and resulted in the total defeat of the Portuguese and Abu Abdallah army, with 8,000 dead, including the slaughter of almost the whole of the country's nobility and 15,000 taken prisoners. So both armies were completely overwhelmed, and the body of King Sebastian, who led a charge into the midst of the enemy and was then cut off, was never found, which created a legend, and that we're still talking about it now. The Sultan Abd al-Malik also died during the battle, but from natural causes the effort of riding was too much for him, and the news was concealed from his troop until total victory had been secured. Abu Abdallah attempted to flee, but was drowned in the river. So Ahmad al-Mansur survived the battle to succeed his brother and became the new Sultan of Morocco. But for Portugal, the battle was an unmitigated disaster. Despite the lack of a body, Sebastian was presumed dead at the age of only 24, and his piety, he had remained unmarried and had no heir to the throne. So his aged, childless uncle, Henry of Portugal, a cardinal of the Roman Church, succeeded to the throne as closest legitimate relative. His brief reign, which lasted only 2 years from 1578 to 1580, was devoted to attempting to raise the crippling financial reparations demanded by the disastrous Morocco adventure. So after the death of the uncle of Sebastian, legitimate claimants to the throne of the House of Avis, which had ruled Portugal for 200 years, you remember, were defeated by a Castilian military invasion, which we mentioned briefly when we talked about Louis the Camouche. So indeed, when the Cardinal King died 2 years after Sebastian's disappearance, 3 grandchildren of Manuel I, you remember the king so famous during the golden age of the discoveries, claimed the throne. So 3 of his grandchildren, it was Infanta Catarina, Duchess of Braganza, Antonio Prior of Crato, and Philip II of Spain. There were 3 grandchildren of Manuel I. Antonio was then acclaimed King of Portugal in many cities and towns throughout the country, but members of the Council of Governors of Portugal, who had supported Philip, escaped to Spain and declared him to be the legal successor of Henry. So Philip II of Spain, a maternal grandson of Manuel I of Portugal, and Nero's male claimant, he was the uncle of Sebastian I. I will explain a bit later all these ramifications because it's a bit complicated, but they're all related. So Philip II of Spain, a grandson of Manuel I and uncle of Sebastian I, invaded the country. Remember the Luis de Camões poem I read last week when he saw the Spanish troops approaching Lisbon? So Philip II of Spain invaded the country with an army of 40,000 men, defeating the troops of Anthony, Prior of Crato, at the Battle of Alcantara, and was then crowned Philip I of Portugal by the cortege of Tomar in 1581. And then a 60-year personal union under the rule of the Philip dynasty began. So 60 years after 1580. So when Philip II left for Madrid 2 years later in 1583, he made his nephew Albert of Austria. So, you will see, we're going to talk about all the powers in Europe because this is really the amazing, part of amazing history at that time. So his nephew Albert of Austria is viceroy in Lisbon. And in Madrid, Philip II established a Council of Portugal to advise him on Portuguese affairs, giving prominent position to Portuguese nobles in the Spanish courts, and allowing Portugal to maintain autonomous law, currency, and government. So he was not completely, an invasion and completely rule of Portugal. They kept a little bit of independence, but they were basically really under the Spanish rules. And I just want here to make a short parenthesis because about all these connections. So Philip II of Spain and Philip I of Portugal, who are the same. So he was a grandson of Manuel I, the great king of Portugal during the golden age of the discovery. But he was also the uncle of King Sebastao, who was presumably dead at the Battle of the Three Kings. So how is that possible? Well, Philip II, and that's why it's becoming very interesting for the European history. Philip II was the son of Charles Quint, Charles V, of the Holy Roman Empire, and Infanta Isabella of Portugal. Okay? And Sebastian, who would later be known in Portugal as the Desired, was the son of the Infante Dom Jean, son of Jean III of Portugal, and Joanna, daughter of the Emperor Charles V. So, Joanna, the Sebastian mother, was the sister of Philip II of Spain, both children of the great Catholic Roman Emperor Charles V. Okay, you follow? It's quite interesting. I mean, it's amazing, all those ramifications. So, Sebastian's father died before he was born, and so Sebastian became king at the age of 3 after the death of his grandfather in 1557. He was educated almost entirely by Jesuits and by Catherine of Austria, again, sister of Charles Quint and wife of King Jean III. Okay, so he was educated by his grandmother, really. And Catherine of Austria, Catherine of Austria, his grandmother, and sister of Charles V. So worth mentioning here Philip's foreign policies, which were determined by a combination of Catholic fervor and dynastic objectives. He was the main figure in Europe at that time. Son of the great Roman Catholic emperor, he considered himself the chief defender of Catholic Europe, both against the Ottoman Turks and against the forces of Protestant Reformation. But we are going to look at that in more details because I think it's really interesting. There's so many things which happened during that time at the end of the 16th century and the start of the 17th century. With the French, even the Dutch, the Spanish Armada. So I'll talk about that next week. You will see all the ramification it's pretty amazing. I mean, for instance, the Spanish Armada departed from Lisbon when they went to try to invade England and fight against the English. So, but that's for next week. Okay, I hope it's not too confusing. So read it again, but listen it again. But it's really, really interesting. So as usual, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to www.lisbonnaturally.com. This week we're still in the middle of the Web Summit in Lisbon. So I really encourage you and urge you to go on the lisbonnaturally.com, the Lisbon Naturally Facebook page. I've posted some videos. The whole summit is on videos, is on their Facebook videos, so you can really enjoy it. There were many panels and very, very interesting about the future of the world, really, the economy and everything. So I really advise you to have a look and go on the Web Summit Lisbon Facebook page as well. Okay? Thanks very much and have a good time. See you later. Bye.